Let's go to our political strategist, Yaron Finkelstein, now, who served as advisor to Scott Morrison during his prime ministership. Yaron, thanks so much for your time. It's hard to know where to start looking at these results. There's not a lot of good news, if any good news, for the Liberal Party. Yesterday, Tim Wilson just getting there over the Teal candidate. But what is the message to the Liberals out of this result, do you think?
Well, the message from the voters is there's two ways to look at it, and I suspect party hardheads will do that. They will see a clear judgment on what they were trying to offer the Australian voter. This campaign was unable to articulate something clear and distinct as to why someone might vote for you. That is clear, without a doubt. The other thing is perhaps a bigger question, and people will need to challenge themselves about, is this more than just a very bad campaign and inaccurate polling? And is there a demographic challenge? Are there challenges with the way the party is perceived? Both concepts, both issues could be right at the same time. So it's going to take a lot of work for Well, I think it is both. I think we saw a catastrophic failure on the research and polling. We don't want to nerd out on polling methodologies, but essentially we now know that pollsters were weighting against the Voice referendum results, which is a technical way of basically saying that we want to look at these results through the prism of the Voice referendum. It was almost looking at it all through voice-coloured glasses. It meant that you saw a snapshot. The referendum was a moment, and I think it gave coalition folk too much emphasis on one moment. It was as if they were unable to understand that a voter could vote yes in the referendum and still be very interested in, say, border protection, or vote no in the referendum and still want Medicare funding boosted. There's a multi-dimensional character in the voter. They can have competing and nuanced positions, and the Liberal Party needs to understand that once they misread and misinterpreted that polling, they were suddenly fielding resources in all the wrong places. And so that's a campaign catastrophe. But the bigger question is one that needs to be grappled by the new leader, whoever it may well be.
Yeah, the new leader, also the party structure as well, Yaron. It's been noted so many times that a lot of the state branches are the ones in charge of getting the candidates in, and then you've got the branches themselves that elect the candidates, and those branch members are not aligned with Middle Australia. I think that's been proven time and time again now. The other thing that we hear always when we see a Liberal Party or centre-right political party lose like this is that, they weren't conservative enough. Do you buy that? Is that the problem here, that Peter Dutton wasn't conservative enough?
No, I clearly don't believe that, and the results don't show that, but nor do the results immediately say to the Liberal Party, you need to radically swing to the left. No. Australian voters are far more nuanced than that. This will not be a case of the Liberal Party thinking about it as left and right and young and old or male and female. It has to be either the old ways of doing business or the new ways, and they need to reflect on how they need to position themselves for an Australia that has changed and will continue to change. So I don't buy that the party needs to go one way particularly. It's so much more complicated or nuanced than that. Yeah. And clearly this notion of the party not representing, or rather voters are different to party members, all parties face that. Laura, the Labor Party has a base that's quite different to what was projected in this campaign. And average, decent Australians, supported those policies. The Greens, for example, have a very radical agenda driven by their membership base. They've suffered the consequences of that too. So all parties face that challenge. I think for the Liberal Party, they need to come to grips with the modern realities of people, performance and policy.
Yeah, I make that comparison only because you're right with the Labor and the Greens and their base not necessarily reflecting the candidates selected. But I think the comparison is that the Teal independents and independents more broadly are the ones eating into the Liberal Party base, and they seem to be able to get good candidates and an army of volunteers. So I don't know what the answer is there. But Yaron, I finally wanted to ask you about, I'm not going to directly ask you who the next leader should be of the Liberal Party, because I suspect that you might be a little bit more circumspect about that direct question. But broadly...
You're very kind to allow me that. Thank you.
Yaron, should it be the new guard or the old guard taking over? Do you think that it needs to be a younger, more vibrant leader taking off from the get-go, or might we see someone more in a transition role? And I say that thinking that whoever is the next Liberal leader probably isn't going to be Prime Minister. They've got the tough, hard job of doing the repair work.
It's the right question to ask, and I'll answer it this way. You mentioned old guard, new guard. I don't necessarily see it as a generational thing, but I do think it is the difference between the old way of doing it and the new way of doing it. And the leader that can best articulate a refreshing approach to how the Liberal Party is sold to voters is the key to it. What I'm trying to say is I think voters will need to be surprised. They won't look at the party for a while. They'll settle into a perception. It happens after a loss because they check out. They have real lives to lead. They've done their bit and they'll switch off. So the Liberal Party will need to surprise voters so that their reaction to whatever it might be, whether it's the leader or the policies, whatever it might be, it surprises voters enough for them to go, well, that's interesting. I might have another look at them. And until that happens, I worry for the party that voters will just tune out and won't hear much about what the party's doing. They need to be surprised and almost shocked into listening to them again.
Good advice, Yaron. Thanks so much for your time as always. We'll speak soon.